Good afternoon, audience. Welcome back to another edition of Restaurant Magic. I am the Hotness.
And I'm Sweetly.
And we are true foodies. We love to talk to people who have their own restaurants, culinary artists, food trucks, caterers, anything associated with food. People who love food, we just want to be involved with them. And today we have joining us Mrs. Clemmons and her daughter Lydia of the Clemmons Family Farm. And correct me, Lydia, where are we at?
Charlotte, Vermont.
Charlotte, Vermont. I got it right. And so they have a farm in Charlotte, Vermont called Clemmons Family Farm, and we would just love to talk to them because they have so much knowledge and information that should be shared with the audience. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Okay. And here we're sitting right in Lydia's living room, and we have just been having a wonderful time here. We arrived here Friday, and we have been experiencing farm life, and the beautiful scenery is just beautiful, the foliage, and I can't explain it. But better than that, we have Mrs. Clemmons here, who is going to tell us a little bit about how they got to the farm and how farming started with them.
So Mrs. Clemmons, how did you end up in Vermont?
Quite by accident. My husband had finished his doctorate degree, MD, at Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And while we were there, we had made friends with a classmate of his who also was finishing his degree. These people were their family, and they hoped to return to Manhattan in New York City. We had gone on a honeymoon trip through the Northwest, and we went through Seattle, Washington, and found it such a beautiful city. We thought we'd like to live here. So when my husband finished his residency in pathology, we thought we'd go to Seattle, Washington, and the people from New York thought that would be no, let's go to Vermont. And we said, okay, we'll go to Vermont. Well, we came to Vermont to visit a friend, and Jack was offered a position here, but we kept remembering Seattle, Washington. But we didn't go. We accepted the position in Vermont. The people who wanted to go to Seattle, Washington went on to Seattle, and now they have forgiven us, but at first they said we were traitors because they wanted to live in Vermont, the worst kind of way to be near their families in New York.
Right.
But it turned out to be a happy ending because they bought a beautiful horse farm in Seattle, and we bought a farm growing mostly hay in Vermont.
And so I know that there are 5 children. Is that correct?
5 children, yes.
Now, how was it raising 5 children on a farm in Vermont?
Well, somehow I believe in guardian angels. So when we were first married, I just had a vision that we would have 5 children. And sure enough, we did. 4 girls and 1 boy.
Oh.
And it was wonderful. The farming was mostly haying and family use gardening, that kind of thing. But the only commercial thing was hay. So it was doable, as I say.
Well, tell them about your garden.
My garden?
Mm-hmm.
My garden, I can't tell you the distance, but it was great. I will tell you I had 100 tomato plants.
Oh,
so
whoa.
you can know what size garden I had.
Huge.
And we grew corn, green peas. I remember I harvested 50 pounds of green peas, called English peas, We had pumpkins that were just the most beautiful sight. And I remember I took my daughter out, who wasn't feeling well, to the garden one day just before Halloween to see the beautiful pumpkins. Well, we gathered all the pumpkins and put them in our front yard, probably at least 50 or 60. We had Chesapeake dogs, but that night they were all in the house. During the night, some pranksters came and removed all the pumpkins.
Oh, no.
Took all the pumpkins, and I'm sure they were teenagers.
Yes.
Because in those days, people were doing crazy things. But they took all the pumpkins anyway.
Wow.
So
I always visioned farm life as getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and just getting ready to plow and harvest things that, once they're harvested and pick those up. Is that how farming went? And how are they getting up at like 4 and 3 in the morning to do this stuff with going to school?
Well, we only did hay for animals, so that was seasonal. Okay. So he could easily, do his work. He had completed his work at school in Cleveland. So this time he was a professional at the University of Vermont. So he could easily, fit that into his schedule. Gardening, as I say, a woman's work is never done, and a man's work is sun to sun. Well, that's the way it is.
Right.
Also on farm life for women. The gardening, I would get up at sunrise, which was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I could tell the time by the sun. I knew when it was 7 o'clock because I needed to go in and wake up the children and get them ready for school. So I could tell it exactly by the sun. I've lost that skill. I'm trying to get back again.
Wow.
But the gardening was easier during the planting and the weeding than it was at harvest time. Because at harvest time you have to be ready. And I had tomatoes in every form you wanted to imagine. And they lasted from harvesting season to the next planting season. And also all the vegetables. We had 50 pounds of green English peas that were harvested, and chickens and pigs.
How did they last from one season to the next one?
Enough in canned goods. You can them in jars, in fruit jars, and they lasted from one harvest to the other. So that was, in today's world, the winter was very relaxed. It was as though we had a supermarket in our kitchen.
Yeah.
In today's world, they're saying you should have enough supplies to last a week in case there's a hurricane or something that happens.
Snowed in.
Yeah, snowed in. So people try to keep enough canned goods from the supermarket on hand.
But back then, that was normal for you to have
It was
that amount
normal.
of food.
Not only me, but most of my neighbors had gardens. So we all had enough food. In any disaster that came along, we all had enough food in there.
Yeah.
We picked wild grapes and made grape jelly.
Yes.
And I tried making grape wine once.
Oh,
That
please.
didn't work out.
Oh, wait, audience. We have to come, that she caught my attention.
Yeah.
So I got to hear more about this wine. But before we do, we're going to take a quick commercial break to find out what really happened with this great wine that Mrs. Clemmons tried to make, because I got to hear all about it. We'll be right back.
When will I get married? Waiting can never be easy. Whether it's waiting on a taxi or a job promotion, it can be difficult. When it comes to waiting on Mr. Right, aka Boaz, it becomes even more challenging to wait while you're single. In this lighthearted book, Where's Boaz? I don't know, I'm tired of kissing frogs too. Best-selling author Nevada York offers suggestions based on the Bible's great love story of Ruth and Boaz and from her own experience of waiting on God. You will learn the attributes of Ruth and use the Ruth reality chart to do a self-check on your own attributes. Nevada also shares the 10-step plan that Ruth followed to win her Boaz. Obedience and being a blessing plays a key role. Trust the Lord and His timing. Make your season of singleness Ruth-defining. Order Nevada York's latest book, Where's Boaz? I don't know, I'm tired of kissing frogs too. Available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle.
My name is Jimmy Davies, and I'm the owner of the Every.Black family of websites. I created EveryBlackEntrepreneur.com because we must become entrepreneurs, and we have to use technology to level the playing field. We support our members by highlighting them in a weekly email announcement. We create a monthly directory where every member has a full-page display. One of the largest advantages of joining the Every.Black family is the ability to network with all of the other members. We have also partnered with the Truth Network to provide a 10% discount for anyone joining and using the discount code of TRUTH, T-R-U-T-H, when signing up. Go to everyblackEntrepreneur.com. Click on the sign up button and join today. You can reach us at 919-265-8045. Sign up today and join the movement to achieve economic freedom.
Welcome back, audience. You're here with the hotness, and
Sweetly.
we are joined with Mrs. Clemmons and her lovely daughter, Lydia, and Dr. Clemmons. And before we went to commercial break, Mrs. Clemmons, you were sharing with us your experience in gardening, and you said that you tried to make some wine with the grapes that you had. So what really happened when you tried to make this wine?
Well, I had harvested from along the fence rows enough grape to make grape wines, and I had them fermenting in a big crock, and I was also the women in Charlotte had applied for a membership in the League of Women Voters, and they were scheduled to meet at our house. And they came just about the time that the fermented wine broke out of its container. And wine was smelling all over the kitchen as the wine was pouring out of the container. It had really, it had really fermented. Yes.
Wow. Like explode, didn't it? Like all pop all over the kitchen.
Because I probably kept it too covered or something.
Maybe
but the whole
lid
kitchen
was too tight. You're supposed to have those lids loose.
Yes, and the whole kitchen smelled of wine. Just as I was applying for Charlotte women to have a membership in the League of Women Voters.
So they came in and all they smelled was the aroma.
Wine.
Yeah, they're like, Miss Clemmons, she's doing what she got going on
I don't
here.
know about you. Not a responsible woman to be voting.
Well, Mrs. Clemmons, what other foods did you make with all your vegetables? Is it a special dish that you did for the kids?
I made a pizza sauce, of course, because pizza was very popular. I think we were all just getting used to making pizza at home. Mm-hmm. So I made pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce, canned pears, making pear preserves. We had large fruit trees. Applesauce. I never knew people bought applesauce because they're jars of applesauce. It's pickles, all kinds of pickles. Beets, especially pickled beets.
My favorite.
Yes,
I love
and beet greens and kale. We grow a lot of kale. We froze the kale in the freezer.
Wow.
We had one of my daughters, next to the youngest, loved one pig especially, and she named him. What did she name him? Napoleon. And so I sent Napoleon to be butchered. So she wanted to know what happened to Napoleon.
Oh wow.
And I just said we exchanged him.
Okay, that's safe.
Once I went to the barn, we had dogs, and they were not necessarily female dogs controlled. So the female dog had puppies in the barn. And there were also baby pigs. And I went out to the barn one day, and there were the puppies, and the baby pigs had gotten a hold of a piece of baling twine, and they were playing tug of war. The pigs were holding one end and the puppies the other.
Holding the other.
That was just.
That sounds like from the movie Babe or something. It's
like Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, it's just
that salutations.
They didn't know they were not supposed to be friends.
Right. Yeah.
They were babies and they were happy.
Just having a blast.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask Lydia, with your mom's gardening, what was your favorite meal or canning thing that she did that was your favorite?
It wasn't the prepared food. I just remember the shelling of the peas, and we'd probably eat as many of those fresh peas as we actually preserved because they were so good, popping them out of the shell and then just eating them raw. That was delicious. But meals, I think my favorite was the gumbo. And I don't know, did we grow okra?
Pardon?
Did we grow okra? We must have grown okra.
Oh, yes, we grew okra, lots of okra.
So it was the gumbo.
Okay.
That was my favorite, I think, which Mom would make after Thanksgiving with the leftover turkey bones.
That's right.
And then she'd add in the crab and the shrimp and filet and okra and oh my God, it was so good. I don't even know what else you put in there.
Well, we put fresh shrimp as well as dried shrimp and clams and
crab meat. I remember you put in
what?
Crab meat.
Oh, crab meat, not clams. Crab meat is what I mean. Yeah. And that was it. And the broth was left over from the Thanksgiving turkey,
Okay.
God, it was good.
Now, I've always heard about a roux when you're making this.
Roux.
Yeah, that's a thickening.
Yes, tell us about that. How do you make roux, Mrs.
Well,
Clemmons?
if you want roux in it, you brown the flour a little bit in a skillet, and then just add the chicken broth and cook it, and then you add it to the gumbo, so it's not thin and watery.
Okay, so
but nice.
It's like a thickener.
Probably a Louisiana recipe more than, at least from my mother's part of Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Lydia, what is your take about being raised on a farm?
I loved it. And I remember my job was mostly in the big barn with the animals. And so I'd have to get up really early in the morning, I don't know what time, to make sure everybody got fed. And the best part of my day would be opening up those big double barn doors. You guys didn't get a chance to get over there, but huge doors. You just heave them open as a little girl, in grade school. and then being greeted by the chorus of animals inside who were thrilled because that meant breakfast was coming.
Time to eat.
What
And
kind of
so
animals?
there were horses, cows, chickens, pigs, ducks,
Yes, we did have some ducks. but,
sheep, and everybody had their language, to say good morning and thank God food is here.
Yeah.
And so it would be just this cacophony of the neighs and the mama and the and everything. And it was just loud, and everybody was really happy in that barn because food was here. And so I
So
loved
you
that.
had to get up at what time?
Before school started, so
Well, yeah, you
probably
had to.
5 o'clock.
You
It was
probably
still
get
dark.
up at 5, yeah, because
And,
you had a pony also.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I had a horse and a
And
pony.
so then after feeding, you would have to come in and get ready for school.
And I get ready for school, and then after school it would be cleaning out the stalls or letting the animals out. The horses, I'd take them out to ride them or something. And feeding them again in the afternoon. It was a lot of fun. And the horses would always get out when they were out in pasture. They'd always somehow get out from the fencing and be all over Charlotte. And I'd have to go chasing after them.
Galloping around.
Yes,
huh?
running, horse on the loose. They'd always get out. The pony especially was a master at getting out of the fencing.
He could get out of anything.
Wow.
So often, really early in the morning, before I even fed the animals, I'd have to go chase a horse
Yeah.
somewhere, go look for a horse who might be way away,
And once
miles away.
Remember, you saw him across the highway, and you said you were so mad with him. She said he pretends he's afraid of cars,
Yeah.
and then he's gone across Route 7.
Right.
He's not afraid of cars because he crosses streets.
And I also loved the haying because I got to drive the tractor.
Oh, yeah.
And the first was cutting the hay and then mowing the hay, and then you'd let it dry. You'd rake the hay, and
How
then
do you get it into that
That's-
shape of that? I guess
the rolls are a
The rolls,
newer
there you go.
technology. When we were kids, it was the square bale, so you used baling twine, and there's a machine that compacts the hay into squares and then bales it automatically. And the square bales are shot out of the back towards the
Wow.
wagon and back of the mower. And the baler, and somebody would be on the back, standing on the back of the wagon, usually my brother and my dad or some high school kids from the community, and I'd be the one who got to drive the tractor,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they'd be the ones stacking the bales in the back.
So you were calling the shots.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I loved that, but I especially loved before the haying itself was just the mowing or the raking, because then it's just me on a tractor with the equipment. And I'd be out there on that whole big property, just a girl on a tractor under the big blue sky, all by myself, driving all this great equipment. It was beautiful.
Audience, Lydia Spears, we've seen her in action, and she is just like moving at, what the speed of light. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask Lydia the importance of preserving, her family's legacy of the Clemmons Family Farm. We'll be right back.
Hey girl, that's a nice t-shirt you're wearing. Where did you get it?
I got it from TeamJesusClothing.com.
Really? I like the messaging and the colors. They're so vibrant.
Yes, TeamJesusClothing.com has a lot of t-shirts and hoodies with encouraging messages. They have styles for both men and women.
Wow, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to TeamJesusClothing.com to place my order now.
Yes, definitely go to TeamJesusClothing.com and be sure to check out my favorite shirt designs, Team Jesus and Won't He Do It?
I can't wait. TeamJesusClothing.com, here I come.
Welcome back, audience. We're here with Mrs. Clemmons and Lydia of the Clemmons Family Farm. And before I went to commercial break, I wanted to ask Lydia about the importance of preserving your family's legacy and how important this farm is to you, because it's a rarity, because we're African Americans and it's not very many of us owning farmland. So can you share with the audience the importance of what you're doing?
Sure. Like everybody in the family, I'll start with a story, and my story with the relationship with the farm, I've told you a bit about our farming when I was a kid, but when I was getting ready to go to college, like many young people who grow up on a farm, I wanted to get off the farm and go as far away as I could. So my choice of colleges was really based on geography. I looked at the map and I asked my parents, what's in California? What schools are in California? And that guided my choice to go to California. And then from California, I wound up after college there going to the Peace Corps and started a wonderful 35-year career in Africa. still as far away from the farm as I could get. Was not looking back. I was thrilled with my work in Africa and public health. I was having a great time. And I'd come back to visit the family and the farm a couple times a year over the span of 35 years. But about 6 years ago when I came back, my son was at the time about 9. He'd been living with me in Africa all over the place, and I thought it was time to come back for him to really know Vermont and know the farm and know the family. And there was a conversation going on in the family about let's sell the farm, because that is inevitably the conversation farming families will have. When the folks who bought the farm, the parents, grow older and the kids leave the farm, often that's the case, is that farming families will wind up selling the farm. They will always have that conversation, what do we do with the farm? And these days, farms are not self-sustaining. It's very rare to have a farm who's just going to be able to sustain itself from agriculture alone. Most farms have to be supplemented by some other kind of revenue. And that's always been the case for our family farm. We had professionals in the family who always contributed to help the farm pay the property taxes and the operating costs for the farm. So the conversation became, what do we do at the farm? And being a researcher, I have a PhD, I do a lot of research in Africa. I wanted to first research and find out, well, what have we got first? You know, real estate values, all kinds of things I was looking at. Markets for farming and sales and all of that. And I fell upon African American land ownership as one of the areas that I wanted to research. And I was horrified. I had not known about the statistics. And when my parents were born in the 1920s, African Americans owned about 44 million acres of land nationwide. Today, it's 3.5 million of acres. That represents a 93% loss of our people's land assets nationwide. 93% of our land assets have been lost. 0.4% of all farms in the nation are African American owned. Half of 1%. And in Vermont, which is 94.5% white, to have an African American owned farm that's 148 acres is it's unheard of. And so the more I started researching about African American land ownership and loss, the rare fact that there are just so few African American owned farms in the nation. Most of those, if they are there, are southern. They're based in the south. New England owned farms by African American. There are a few sprinkles of them. But this farm is so unique, as you've seen, between the land and the historic buildings. And also the legacy, the story of our parents and how they came here and just breaking all social expectations about what people should be doing in their time in the 60s when they bought the property.
And this farm, they came in 1962?
1962, at a time when African Americans were not thinking about land ownership or farming.
Exactly.
Especially not for an African American
So
doctor
you guys
and nurse.
broke a barrier.
Lots of barriers. Race barriers, social standing, status, their expectations. A doctor and a nurse should be living in an urban area doing their doctor and nursing. Why are they in a farm in Vermont, you know? So the more I researched, the more I said, we can't let go of this. It's too important, not just for the family, but for the community and for the nation, because it's so rare. The ownership of land is rare, and holding on to that as an African American owned land asset, and also what we're doing with the farm, which is preserving the farm as a place for all people, African American and white American or green American, whatever color you are, to come and learn about African American heritage, art, and culture. Especially in today's world, there's so much talk about the negative aspects of African American life and experience. And yet there's so much to celebrate: our art, our culture, our history, our literature, our scholars, the achievements that we've had. And that's not enough in today's conversation. The negative aspects of what's happening to us as a people, those are very important conversations to have. And yet, in those conversations about oppression, we can't forget the other conversations about the success and the achievements and the things we should be celebrating and holding up. In spite of all that has happened to us as a people, we have triumphed. We have so many things to be proud of, and this farm is part of that story. And welcoming everybody here, regardless of race, to learn about that story and to celebrate the arts and culture, but especially for African American people.
Right.
How many of us have had the opportunity to walk on African American owned land, and African American owned land that's actually for the public to enjoy? It's so rare.
It's extremely rare, and we're just so appreciative of you and your family granting us this experience. So before we let you go, please share with the audience, your website information so they can figure out how they can help donate to your farm and help, sustain and preserve your family's legacy.
Thank you. We'd be so grateful for that. The website is clemmonsfamilyfarm.org, www.clemmonsfamilyfarm.org. Just Google Clemmons Vermont and we'll pop right up. You can donate in 3 ways. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you'll find a donate button on the website, and you can donate through our fiscal sponsor, Burlington City Arts, which is a nonprofit organization. Give the money to them and just say it's for the Clemmons Family Farm, and you can write that off of your taxes, so that your taxes don't have you, and reduce your taxes and give it to us instead. Another way is to just write a check to the Clemmons Family Farm and mail it to 2158 Greenbush Road in Charlotte, Vermont. Not Charlotte. Charlotte, Vermont. I think those are the 2 main ways, but look on the website and there's information about how you can donate to the Clemmons Family Farm. Or just come on by. And also another way to donate is when we open again in May, come enjoy some of our events. Many of them are free, but we ask for donations, and that's so helpful to us. So we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. We've been just enjoying the beautifulness of Vermont and your lovely family.
Yes, and we even got to see some snow. But before we leave, listeners, we'd like to have Mrs. Clemmons just say a little bit about everything that she has accomplished. But we're looking like we're going to have to wrap it up right now. So what would your last words be, Mrs. Clemmons?
A last word?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I don't attribute our getting this land and all to our own mental or physical resources. I am a person who believes in guardian angels, and I have complete evidence of my belief, and I think that's why we were led to this farm, and not through our own wisdom and vision, but because of our guardian angels. We managed to buy it.
Wonderful. Well, thank God for those guardian angels. Now listen, listeners, this has been Sweetly
And the hotness.
Checking out what the Clemmons Family Farm was all about, and it has been fabulous.
Shouldn't laws be black and white? Doesn't everyone deserve the same treatment? For 15-year-old Gemini Berry, the answers are obvious. But then a crime shocks Gemini's small town, and she learns that many adults see things in shades of gray. In Nika Chanel's novel, Just as the Sky is Blue, Gemini Berry is forced to grow up fast when her mother agrees to play a central role in a sensational murder trial that tears her small town apart. As the trial spins out of control, secrets are revealed and old debts are settled, and Gemini's life is ultimately changed forever. Order Mika Chanel's book, Just as the Sky is Blue. Just as the Sky is Blue is available on Amazon.com, Kindle, and Audible.com.